Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Spotlight with Sandalina, and I'm your talk show host, Sandalina Sitar. Today's guest is Kanika, who is a South Asian actress and an owner of a multi-designer boutique in Vancouver, as well as somebody that's very involved in her community, putting on events for the Indian Consulate, and also emceeing at some really big celebrity shows. So let's dive right in. Tell me a little bit more about your upbringing.
Well, I was born and raised in Delhi. So I'm a big city girl, like just right from the back.
Love
I,
it.
I was born in Delhi. I was raised in Delhi, went to school, went to university in Delhi. And then I moved to Vancouver when I was 19.
Okay.
So I was married to a Canadian boy. And that sort of brought me back into Vancouver. And then I got married. I started my family. And now I've been in Vancouver for almost 20 years.
Wow. So you lived around half your life so far
Yeah.
in Delhi and then the other half in Canada.
I'm so glad you said that because I find this is such an interesting time in my life because I've almost spent half my life in India and half in Canada.
Yeah.
And a lot of my work sort of, connects the two worlds of mine. So I work a lot into like my bilateral relationships where I bring Indian work of Indian craftsmanship, Indian designing, Indian art, fashion. And then I also have my family in Canada that I'm raising, and I have so much context of my work in Canada. So I feel I'm blessed.
So tell me a little bit more about growing up in Delhi. So tell me about your parents. What did they do, and what was your sort of relationship like with each of them as individuals?
In Delhi, like especially like back when I was growing up, I come from a very, very, very conservative, traditional Punjabi family, Hindu Punjabi family, and my parents are very traditional. My dad was a realtor, my mom was a homemaker, and I grew up with two older siblings in the city of Delhi, and it was a big household, like, 3 kids and parents. My dad was always working, and we did the vacations like always, the usual kids do. But I still feel like I didn't get to spend a lot of time in India sort of to bond with my parents because I was 19 when I met my fiance. So I was literally a teenager, and I moved halfway across the world. So I still feel like I could do so much more with my family, but yeah.
Sure. So who were you closer to growing up, your mom or your dad, or would you say equal?
My dad.
Yeah.
My dad. So my mom was very much of like a tough love type of woman.
Sure.
And you know how mothers and daughters, they have a very interesting equation. I don't know
Yes.
like especially South Asian moms and daughters have such an interesting dynamic that it takes them decades to kind of like, realize and understand the complexities of because I feel like, especially in South Asian cultures, like there's so many things that, that the mothers and women are carrying from, like, from generations.
Yes.
And they don't even know, and they pass it on
Yes.
to their daughters unknowingly, unintentionally. My mom was only doing the best, but growing up, I was like, Mom, you could be nicer. Mom, come on, you could be more sweeter. Mom, you could say this in a better, I had that relationship with my mom.
I completely relate with that. I feel like I'm in my 20s now, but I spent probably like the first 2 decades of my life like being head to head with my mom. We would disagree on every little thing. And now all of a sudden it's flipped. Now that I'm in my 20s, I like understand her more than I ever have in my life. I actually relate to her in a lot of ways. I see myself becoming her.
Props to moms too, because it takes a lot of resilience and courage to, make peace with a strong-headed daughter.
Yeah.
So it's not just us, it's them too.
Tell me a little bit more about your relationship with your dad.
So my dad was not very much of a conversationalist. Like, he was a man of a few words. But there was always this unsaid, a deep compassion and unsaid comfort and support. And like, my dad always put me on a pedestal. Like, and I know all parents do that with their kids because kids are precious, right?
Yeah.
But because I didn't get that from my mom, I always, went to my dad if I needed more validation. I always went to my dad if I wanted to hear, positive things, And we're speaking about a day and age where the Instagram was not a thing.
Right.
No, but I think nothing replaces a father's love for a daughter. And my dad was my hero.
I was always like the shining star daughter, like
Are you the only daughter?
No. My sister, I was about to say, so my sister and I feel like he always held us with like a very special sort of precious, like, oh, these are my like treasures sort of perspective.
100%.
And it's his faith in me has always been very unwavering. Whereas, with mom, because they're worried about, what's the worst possible case scenario.
Is she making the right decisions?
Exactly. Whereas, dad's always like, of course she's making the right decisions. We raised her, that's our daughter. And then my mom, is more like, oh, well, what if this and this and this and this?
Yeah.
So I completely understand the way that trope kind of lends itself. The father-daughter trope is so common. So tell me a little bit more about your exposure to wealth growing up. What was your and your siblings' sort of socioeconomic dynamic and relationship with money as children?
I've learned a lot about how much of your relationship with money impacts how much abundance you attract. What you're putting out in the world is what you're getting,
Yeah.
right? I grew up in a business family, so I never had to worry about or think about money. I grew up with a mindset that I'd never have to get a job. I wasn't conditioned to have a career. I wasn't conditioned to be ambitious. I was denied to go to law school, and I was denied to go to a pageant that I wanted to do.
Wow.
Yeah, because, and not to blame it to my parents, I think they were doing their best, but they didn't know better. For them, I think the best thing that a woman could do was, be a homemaker and raise a family, and that was just their knowledge at that point. Now I make peace with it, and I give them grace for it. I grew up to know that I was just going to be a wife and a mom.
Wow.
I wake up and I tell myself that my dreams are bigger than anything. My dreams are bigger than me. My purpose is bigger than me, and I'm not going to let myself get in the way
Yeah.
of what I'm set out for. But as long as I'm walking on the path truthfully and authentically, and going out for what I think is meant for me, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I think
Yeah.
that's a really good transition to sort of your educational journey. So what was that like? So what kind of student were you when you were growing up in high school? And what is it called in India? What's like the educate? Because I know in Pakistan it's like O levels, A levels. They have
Oh,
different
so
names.
it's CBSE boards.
Okay.
So that's grade 10 and grade 12.
Okay.
So those are the two very difficult years for anyone who's grown up in India, especially in that age.
Okay.
In that age, I say like I'm ancient, but I mean, we're still talking about 30 years ago,
Yeah.
right? I was a good girl growing up. I always listened to rules. Inside of me, I was like, oh my God, I want to do so much more. But I did well in school. I was the first one in my family to go to university.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went to university because I really got good grades in grade 12, and I did political science honors, a major in political science in University of Delhi.
Wow.
And on my third year, I got engaged.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I had registered for my master's, and I'm like, oh my God, if this thing doesn't go through, like if my marriage thing doesn't go through, I'm going to do my master's. I'm going
Yeah.
to go and study, but I got engaged. But then I still went back to school.
Okay.
Yeah,
In Canada?
in Canada.
Okay, so you continued your education in
I
Canada.
continued my education,
And then
yeah.
did you finish the degree there?
I got my degree in
Okay.
Delhi, and then I got in Canada, and I did my post-bac in HR management, and then I went back to styling school. I got my image consultancy
Okay.
a certification. So I did train quite a bit after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So what I really love about your journey is the fact that you're quite literally shattering that mold, right? A lot of women, and this is something that, my mom can relate to a bit more because she's the one that, grew up in Pakistan. And
Oh, wow.
so she grew up in Pakistan, and then she got married in her early 20s and then came to the US, and then she had me a couple years later. So your story is very similar to hers, but she always wanted to kind of continue that education, but she was always told, no, like your role is to be a housemaker and a wife. And, it's not my grandparents' fault. It's like all they knew too.
It's all they know. You follow the path that has been given to you, and
Yeah.
you don't shake the boat. It's our sort of purpose too that we come to make peace with, and we're like, you know what, this is not enough.
Yeah.
This is not enough for me. I want more.
Yeah.
And we're allowed to ask for more, fight for more.
Yeah.
And my parents have passed.
Okay.
It was 9 years ago my mom passed away, and 8 years ago my dad passed away.
Okay.
But I know for a fact that if they were here, they would be the most proudest.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that they look at me with like utmost respect and pride
Yeah.
because I've done more. I've done more than what they had set out for myself.
Yeah.
I've done that, and I've done more. Like I'm still growing. I'm still growing my horizons, and I'm growing my family's vision. Like I'm paving the path for my own daughter.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that I am, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully she'll open more doors for me and open my vision more, right? So
Yeah.
I think we just pass it on.
Yeah, and I really you brought up a lot of good points that I want to get into as we go through the episode. So, yeah, I think what I find really spectacular, especially, is you dare to dream in an age before social media.
Yeah.
I think that's what's crazy. It's very easy for people in my generation to dare to dream because we see people doing things on our phone all the time. And you know, social media kind of bridges this gap between strangers all over the world. And it makes you see that, oh, you know, if this person can do this, I can do this. But for you, you didn't have that access to that reservoir of knowledge and exposure. So where were you kind of getting your inspirations for, you know, dreaming bigger when you were growing up?
I listen to my gut feeling and instincts. I've always been very instinctive. There's always a subconscious, or there's things that are happening. Universe is giving you signs, and there's things happening. You're meeting people. Life is unfolding where you know that it's taking you to a place where you're gonna be like, okay, you know, it's worth it. Like this is my time, or this is my opportunity, or this is my chance. I always knew that, like, imagine all my siblings, all of us grew up in India. I was the one who moved to Vancouver or Canada. So I was sort of exposed to the Western world. I started modeling after my kids were born.
Wow.
So I did my first modeling gig after my firstborn, and because it was so much validating for me, like, you know, walking the runway, telling myself that I can still do it. You know, I've birthed a child, but I'm still allowed to be me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm still allowed to dream.
Yeah.
And because I was in the Western culture and my husband was supportive, I think that was kind of a boost for me. And that was sort of like coming full circle moment that I wanted to do a pageant when I was younger.
Yeah.
But I got into modeling after. So I always listened to my heart, listened to the deepest, you know, calling of my instincts, and did that.
In a lot of societies, motherhood is seen as the kiss of death to ambition and dreams. And I love that you said, no, look, I want to be a mother. I want to be a good mother. I want to take care of my kids, but I also am allowed to continue to dream. And there's a world in which you can do both.
If there was a message that I could give to the world or give to all the women, is like, don't dim your light just because you're a mom. Like, you're there for your children. Your children are always going to have you. You're the mom. You're the backbone. You're the anchor.
Yeah.
But how you live your life is going to be a testament for what they see.
Yes.
Children learn from not what you teach them, but from how you live your life.
Yeah.
You have to justify your dreams so that your daughters and your sons know that it's okay to dream big. Your life could start at 50.
Yeah.
You know, you're a podcast host. A woman in their 50s or 60s or 70s could start this.
Yeah.
And have conversations and share their wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, you are sharing your passion with the world. And I think it's beautiful, but it doesn't have an age limit. Like, someone who is like older, you know, could share their experiences, their wisdom, their lifelong, you know, what they're learned in the decades, you know, and the beauty of life. We'll live until we die.
Yeah.
So live every moment and pick your passions.
Did you ever face backlash and pushback from the community, right? Because it sounds like that you know, maybe a little bit more than your peers dare to dream a bit big. And, you know, it's a woman that is so bold and ambitious that kind of breaks the rules a little. That scares people, especially in traditional community. So how did you navigate that?
I feel like I've never really had like a roadblock in terms of like, once I set out that I'm going to do this. However, I know that there are some gatekeepers of patriarchy in our society, you know, and sometimes they're women.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're like, how dare you, you know, shake the boat. But I feel that also comes with a lot of desire of wanting to do things. So I wish I could really trigger that fire and really spark that fire that, you know what, if you have a desire and if you want to do something, whether or not it's art or fashion or acting, performing arts, you know, training in anything, like, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Like, but you have to get out of your own way.
Yes.
You can't let guilt and shame and blame and hold you back. Like, I wish I could be that person who could tell women that you do it, like, you know, get out, girl, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I know it's not easy, and I know that not everyone like struggle and that battle, and sometimes it's just easy to sort of like navigate your life with peace and calm, and maybe I like adventure, maybe I like, you know, the adrenaline of waking up and be like, what am I doing today?
Yeah.
But if you have the desire, you gotta do it. You gotta go for it. It's one life.
The theme is that you've always been a big city girl.
Yeah.
Right? From Delhi to Vancouver, now we're sitting in Manhattan. Like you
Yes! Bless and bless this day. I'm so excited to be in New York. Like,
Yeah.
it's this city has something. Like the
Yeah.
moment I walked in, I'm like, oh, this energy, soak it in, girl.
Yeah. It's a blessing to be here. And another thing you touched upon sort of in your story is the theme of loss, specifically with your parents. If you don't mind, I'd like to go a little bit more into that. And
When my mom passed away, it was kind of like I wasn't expecting it because
Okay.
I was visiting India. I was in the same room, and she passed away in her sleep. So it was kind of like a shock, but it took me a while to make peace that mom's gone.
Yeah.
So when when life takes away something that you're not anticipating, it takes a lot of time to fill that void. Especially mom, like my mom was my,
Yeah.
your mom's a person, right? And especially growing up, like I not necessarily had the best relationship with my mom.
Sure.
So I always thought that, oh, I have my life. Like I'm gonna like make memories with my mother. I'm gonna do things with my mother. I'm gonna be her best friend. We're
Yeah.
gonna be besties. We're gonna share everything. But she passed away so quick that I almost felt that, oh damn, like something was like taken away. It was almost like a betrayal.
Yeah.
And I felt like, wow, I never got enough of mom. Parents are like the backbone of your
They're the
family.
glue.
Everything changes. So a lot of my deep connections with my family were sort of like fading away. So I was really questioning what is really significant in life. Because we, as women, as South Asian women, we hold so much value in relationships. So when I started therapy and grief counseling, and I had to take professional help, and I had to knock on some doors and be like, okay, I need to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm because I have kids, and I have a husband, I have a family to take care of.
Yeah.
And I have very significant relationships that I can't sort of not show up in, right?
Yeah.
I really had to dive into myself. There's more to life. People come and go, relationships come and go.
Yeah.
It's a cycle of life, and I have to stay true to my path. I pray a lot, so I have this sort of connection with this source who I feel like my mom has a lot to do with. And now I feel more connected with my mom than I ever felt when she was alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so lovely. It's sad, but it's also a beautiful journey of healing and recovery
Yeah.
since then. And I think that, it's lovely that you were able to call for help.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge stigma against sort of mental health struggles in the South Asian community. So for you to take the initiative to start knocking on doors and saying, I need grief counseling. I need help.
Yeah.
Right. And then I also love that this in a way brought you towards spirituality and faith and made you feel more connected to your parents after they'd passed. Like I think there's a lot to unpack there, and there's a lot for people listening to learn about the beauty of sort of faith, right?
Yeah.
Faith in the people around you, asking for help, faith in, maybe a higher power. You can call it universe or Mother Nature, if you don't want to identify with a religion, but whatever it is, like there's a beauty in sort of surrendering.
You're
right?
so right. You're so right, Sandlina. I think you hit the nail in the head because it it's faith. And I know a lot of people go through a lot of things. Every human has a journey. Every
Yeah.
human has a purpose.
Yes.
You are here on this path. You're here on this earth for a reason. And you're very young and you're doing incredible things. But I feel like you're the more you age, the more you're gonna get
Yeah.
in tuned with what's really out there for you. And I feel like when human beings, go through loss or relationships like divorces or loss of
Yeah.
people or death, disease, breakup, God has a way of calling you its path.
Yeah.
I feel, yeah.
I want to understand the dynamic of getting married at the age of 19. So how did you meet your husband, and how did that sort of impact your worldview getting married so young?
My dad's always been inspired by Sikh culture. Like
Okay.
he's always friends were like Sikh, and he's we're Hindu Punjabi, but he's always like I went to Punjabi school.
Okay.
So my dad and I were on a conference. It's called International Punjabi Conference.
Okay.
My dad was a member, and they host conferences every year in different parts of the world. So this year, the year I finished my graduation, my dad was supposed to go with my mom. My mom got sick last minute, so my dad's like, I don't want to go alone because he was going with this other couple friend. And he's like, why don't you come with me? My husband at that time had come with his dad for the same conference.
Ah.
We both met at the conference. We both liked each other. But apparently there was a common friend of my dad and his dad who was also trying to introduce us.
Mm.
So we liked each other. We talked there, but then we got back to our respective countries. And then my dad sort of came to me and he's like, how did you, what do you think of that guy? And I was like, why is my dad talking to me about a guy? This is so, it's not a normal conversation.
Yeah.
But then he said, one of our friends suggested that you meet them and they're going to come and visit India. And are you open to having a conversation with him and maybe meeting him? And I was like, yeah, I liked him and I'm open to meeting him.
Wow.
And we met. He came with his parents to India. We met, and we were engaged within 3 months.
Wow.
And we were married within 8 months of meeting each other.
Did you feel ready?
I really I felt ready. And I felt that also had to do with my conditioning. Like I was always told that I was going to be married.
Yeah, of
My
course.
sister was married at 18. So I had to leave my life, leave my friends.
It's really interesting to kind of see you take that leap of faith at such a young age. And you're right, it has a lot to do with sort of your upbringing and what you know to be the norm. But in modern day, you know, I'm sure you see it through like your kids and like your other peers and stuff. It's a very different world. Like people are allergic to the word marriage until like late 20s, early 30s, sometimes later than that, which is, you know,
sometimes late 30s.
Yeah.
People are, and I think rightfully so. Like, why wouldn't you want to establish yourself or know who you are before you get married? But at that time, it felt right because I didn't know better. My husband is an incredible person.
Yeah, it sounds like you really liked him. Like this isn't forced. Like you
No,
were like,
no,
I like
no.
him a lot.
No,
Like,
I really liked him.
wanted to know him.
My husband we always have this sort of like tug of war where he thinks that this was love marriage. He's like, we knew each other. I'm like, no, but we didn't date. We liked each other. So it is arranged. But he's like, no, it's love marriage. I'm like,
it's a hybrid because you guys actually liked each other.
We did like each other.
Yeah.
And we were conversing.
Yeah.
We did sort of exchange emails on the trip.
Back then, emails.
Back then there was no phones.
Yeah.
Well, there were phones, but there was no texting.
No texting, yeah. I want to do a quick hot seat segment with you.
Okay.
So first question, biggest culture shock moving from India to Canada?
People sleeping at like 8 p.m.
Really?
Because Delhi, everything is open till like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
So that was the number one thing. I'm like, what? If I wanted to eat something, like you couldn't get, back then, McDonald's was barely open.
Yeah.
So I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that was huge. I'm like, and people waking up early. Like city life and Vancouver life was so different.
Yeah.
Just starting early, packing up early.
Yeah.
Not enough people on the roads, not traffic. Like it was just aesthetically, it was like a big shift.
Very different.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Biggest surprise in married life early on, biggest adjustment you had to make?
You married the family.
Yeah.
You marry the family of your husband. It's not just especially when you live with them.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest.
So you did you or do you live with your in-laws?
I did live with them for 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the biggest adjustment.
Yeah.
They're all amazing people.
I'm
though.
sure.
But it was adjustment. Like
everyone
has different personalities. Everyone's raised differently. Everyone has different beliefs. It's a lot of maneuvering around and navigating through different paths.
Yeah.
So
Adapting. Yeah.
Adapting, yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. What are some of your favorite movies?
I'm a Hindi movie fanatic, like Bollywood movies. So my favorite movie is Rockstar.
Okay.
All-time favorite. Ranbir Kapoor. I don't like to say that I'm a diehard fan, but I love his work. Like he's such a good actor.
What's been your biggest lesson from the acting world so far?
Rejection is like, is a part and parcel. So don't take rejection personally. I give 4 auditions a week.
Wow.
And you book once in like 500. That's like it's a competitive industry.
Yeah.
So rejection is not personal. Make peace with it. Move on. And it's not personal. You just keep putting in the work.
How has motherhood inspired or impacted your acting career?
They say with great powers come great responsibilities.
Yes.
So motherhood has given me a lot of responsibility where I feel that I want to be a part of good storytelling. I want to be a part of good stories that my kids could feel proud of.
Yeah.
And my kids could feel that my mom is making a difference, not just like she's in the entertainment world, but she's a part of a legacy where she's changing the world with good storytelling, with good acting, with being centered and being truthful, with a narrative that is not just like I'm here to act, but I'm here to fulfill my deepest desire and purpose, but also, contribute to good cinema, good stories, good value-driven movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I love that. What's been one of your favorite memories on set?
Oh, one of my favorite memories on set is from the last movie I did with Yograt Singh. He played my father-in-law, and he's a legend of an actor. And just we sat down and we were talking about just spirituality and how much that conversation meant to me and how much wisdom was exchanged. Well, I shouldn't say exchanged. How much wisdom was given to me, and I felt it was a really good. I was in a really good place to be around him and being around such a refined actor and a
Yeah.
good human.
Wow. Wow. What are some of your biggest challenges as a business owner with your boutique shop?
Small business owners are like one man army or one woman army.
Yeah.
They do everything themselves, navigating all through different those skill sets and learning so many things. Like I had to learn
Yeah.
to be tech savvy. I'm like the worst. I'm like, do not get me sit on a computer because I'd just be an amateur. But I had to learn to do Google Sheets and all
Yeah.
those fancy things that I was like, but
Yeah. Wow. Well, you're killing it.
well, I hope so. I'm not. I still struggle, but fake it till you make it.
Right? That's the best way to go.
Yeah.
What have been some of your proudest moments in your acting career so far?
My proudest moment was when I took my kids for my first feature film. First time watching myself on the big screen. And like I've always gone and watched movies in a theater. And when I held their hands and I took them to the theater, I'm like, you're going to watch Mom's movie. And I was like, this is a core memory.
Oh.
And they were so proud because they watch me give auditions and self tapes
Yeah.
every day, all day. My son is usually my reader, and
Oh.
and they always are hopeful that mom's gonna book things, right?
Yeah.
So they were like, okay, she's doing things. She's not just, living in a la la land and
Yeah.
in an illusionary world. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest celebrities that you've worked with?
Yograt Singh. Well, Anupam Kher, I worked in the capacity of an interviewer, not as an actor. Vinay Pathak was the other actor, very, very good theater actor. Sarabjit Chima, Roshan Prince, these are all Indian Punjabi actors.
Who are some of your biggest mentors in the space?
This gentleman that I work with or have, he runs an organization called BCIBN, British Columbia India Business Network. He's just that person who's always given me that confidence that I could walk this path. My husband, I wouldn't say he's more of my anchor than a mentor.
Yeah.
But you know when someone tells you that you got this, he has to be your mentor, right? Because he's guiding you through.
Of course. Support.
Yeah. So I would say my husband as well.
Wait, I love that. Speaking of husband, what is your attachment style and what's his attachment style?
So both our love languages is physical. So we're both big huggers, big cuddlers, and we're always like giving each other big hugs, and we're always holding hands in public, and it's always that, but our attachment style is different.
Okay.
He's more of he wants to do everything with me. He loves, enjoys, thrives on, doing adventure with me and watching movies with me. It's not just a cliche that the biggest project you ever work on is yourself.
Yes.
You come into this world alone, you go alone.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll have different relationships, even romantically, like when you go on a date. Like, how many times do they say that your significant other is supposed to add value
Yes.
to already an amazing life?
Now let's transition a little bit more into your acting career. So tell me about how that got started up and what have been sort of your big moments and breaks since then.
I've always, as a child, wanted to be in performing arts, acting on camera. Always, like ever since I've known. I've always been a Bollywood geek, a Hindi cinema. I watch films 3-4 times. I thrive on cinema. Like every Friday, I want to watch a movie in a theater. Like that's just something that fulfills me.
Yeah.
So when but I had to like really bring it to surface and tell my husband that I want to pursue this as a career.
Yeah.
Because it's not a conventional career for a mother, a South Asian woman, an immigrant.
Yeah.
So many things. I still have an Indian accent, which still comes in my way, like when I'm going for Hollywood auditions.
Sure.
There's so many things, right? So there's so many like limiting beliefs that I had to battle. But once I had this conversation with my family, I sat my kids down, I sat my husband down. I'm like, I really want to pursue acting. I think there's a calling. I don't care if I become a huge actress. I don't care if I become a failure. I have to follow this path and see where I go.
Yeah.
Because it's like screaming to me right now. So it was a little bit of work just navigating that. Got enrolled in acting school. I still train.
Wow.
Every week I have an acting coach, and I train as an actor. I audition. I'm with an agent. I do voiceover, a lot of voiceover work,
Oh, wow.
commercials. So that's how it started 6 years ago. And I've done a couple of feature films, short films. So it's still a slowly but surely sort of a journey.
And tell us a little bit more about your feature film. So it's Sardara and Sons, is
Sardara
correct?
and Sons. So it got released last year.
Okay.
It was a worldwide release, and that's the film that I took my kids to watch.
Yeah.
The little girl in me who always wanted to, validate her dreams. Just being in that one film was like, you know what? You've done it. Like, it doesn't matter where it goes. Like, you're here.
Yeah.
Soak it in. Like, you're here. These are the moments we live for.
And you started only 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of traction in a very short amount of time. I have to
It
point that
is.
out.
Yeah,
That's
as
incredible.
an actor, sometimes it takes 20 years
Yeah.
to get your first breakthrough.
Oh my goodness.
I'm blessed. It was a Punjabi feature film, but still, it was a great opportunity.
Tell me a little bit more about your boutique. So how did you start that up, and sort of what are the day-to-day operations like of that, and where is it?
When I moved here, I sort of noticed a little bit of a gap between India and Canada when it comes to like fashion and accessibility, and how much of a struggle it is to find something for, like a party or a wedding. Like, I wanted to bring the work of Indian designers and give accessibility to people here to see how exciting it is to,
Yeah.
wear their art and their work. So I launched my business, and I started working with designers like Masaba Gupta and Papa Don't Preach.
Okay.
So I got a lot of labels on board who wanted to come to Vancouver in Canada and wanted to showcase their art to this side of the world. So
Yeah.
I became the middle person. I became like their source.
Yeah.
And that's how Rapta by Rahul came on board. I met Rahul 7 years ago, and I was like, I'd love to showcase your jewelry. There's
Yeah.
so many elements of nature and Indian heritage and our arts, our culture, our background, our roots, and I want people to see this, wear
Yeah.
this. I take a lot of pride in sort of storytelling through art and fashion.
Yeah.
And now it's come a long way. I've worked with a lot of labels, and I in-house a lot of labels in Vancouver. I go on tours. I host
Wow.
pop-ups. So it's a lifestyle now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rob the Viral Hole, I want to say the pieces are so beautiful.
Oh my God,
I remember it
yes.
being at the pop-up just a few days ago, and I was just so enamored. And by the way, I'm not somebody that I'm not a big jewelry person in general. Like, I've never really worn much jewelry. I've always seen my mom and aunts and grandmas, but I just never got into it. So for me, it's really difficult for me to like jewelry, but I really like the pieces. I remember there was one choker I tried on, and I just felt so nice in it. I was like, I want to keep this on forever. So it was
Yeah,
great.
I mean, and jewelry also makes you feel good. It's kind of like a thing, right? Like,
yeah.
when you look good, you feel good. And
Yeah.
they usually mostly do bridal,
Yeah.
but there's so many pieces that you could do it day to day. For Rapta and Rahul, we were able to do kalide for the wedding, the pieces that the bride wear, the
Okay.
hand pieces. They're called kalide. So, and they are the masters. Rahul is the master craftsman of kalide.
Wow.
Like, he's changed the game when it comes to like those bridal accessories, whether it's
Yeah.
headpieces and the hand pieces. So he designed the kalide for Deepika Padukone, Katrina Kaif. He's done a lot of jewelry for Alia Bhatt.
Wow.
And he styled a lot of Bollywood films. Chandramukhi, Kangana Ranaut in the latest film. And he's been on set with a lot of actors, designing for them, styling them.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot of brides in Vancouver through
Yeah.
me. So he styled a lot of brides in their bridal jewelry, the nose pieces, the head pieces,
Yeah.
the necklaces.
Wow.
It's stunning.
Wow, that's so inspiring. It's so nice to see sort of the way that it's making waves across different parts of the diaspora between, Canada, India, Bollywood.
Any of my designers get love from people all over the world.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm putting India on the map, right? Like,
Yeah. And speaking of, kind of sharing culture, I know that you also host cultural events for the community, for, big sort of names like the India Consulate. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So with Indian Consulate, so as I mentioned earlier, I am there's an organization called BCIBN, so British Columbia India Business Network.
Okay.
So I'm on the board of directors, and that takes care of a lot of India Canada events.
Okay.
before I got into acting and modeling, I hosted a TV segment. I also hosted interviews for a magazine, Indian magazine.
Wow.
So I've done a lot of broadcasting, sort of like interviewing work,
Yeah.
And I've always been in this space where I am connecting with a lot of Indian artists.
Yeah.
So wherever there is like cultural events, I was always asked to speak. I've spoken at youth events. I've spoken at cultural events. I've been MC. I have MC'd some of the biggest Bollywood concerts
Wow.
in Vancouver.
Wow.
The last one I did was the Salman Khan concert.
Oh, wow.
And his entire like this crew, Salman Khan was there, Jacqueline, and those other big actors. And I was sharing the same stage, being like emceeing in front of 15,000 people. That was insane rush, but
Yeah.
also something that I did for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so fantastic. So it sounds like you sort of have like a portfolio career where you're kind of balancing all these different sort of avenues for creativity, contribution to the community, and career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think everything has kind of linked to each other.
Yeah.
I've always been on camera, on stage. So things have always like led me to the other opportunity in the next door. So
Yeah.
it's come full circle. Like I take a lot of happiness and pride in wherever I'm representing community, at events or working with BCIBN or emceeing concerts, Bollywood
Yeah.
concerts or singing concerts. It's always been fun.
And what have been some of your biggest lessons?
When you work in a lot of space where you're directly communicating with people, when you're in spaces where you're in big cities or where you're on stage or you're dealing with a lot of people, as an empath or as someone who's sensitive to energies, you soak in a lot of energies.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can trigger you. It can affect your mental health, your sleeping patterns,
Yeah.
the way you think. So I think one of the biggest lessons or the biggest thing was to always protect and guard and guide my light
Yes.
and not let that be shaken or absorbed or soaked in.
Great way to sort of tie a bow on the whole career, key learnings and takeaways.
Thank you.
I want to transition just a little bit into, we've touched upon this throughout, but sort of marriage and motherhood, right? So one reason that I bring this up is because I think it's really important to really understand the way a person really works, is to understand sort of their view on relationships and love, right? Because that really is the most vulnerable part of
Yeah.
the human experience, is to love and to be loved, right?
Yeah.
It's a very vulnerable, scary, exhilarating thing.
I mean, like, think about it. Like, what does everybody wants in this world?
Everybody wants it.
Everybody wants
Even
to
if
be
they won't
loved.
admit it,
Even
they
if they won't
do.
admit it, even if they won't, even if they're detached or we still want to be loved. We still
Yeah.
want to be in the frequency of love. We still want to be
Yeah.
in space of love.
Yeah.
So love makes the world go round.
It does.
It's not the money.
It's not the
It's love.
I love that. How has your schedule evolved as somebody balancing a career and children and marriage?
When my kids were younger, I spent a lot of time with them. My son, especially my firstborn, I for a long time I did not even have a job. I was just with him because my husband was traveling for work and I didn't have enough family or
Yeah.
my family in Vancouver for babysitting, and I spent a lot of time with him. Now they're a little bit older. I think I have the privilege and the luxury. I'd like to acknowledge it because a lot of women don't have it. So I recognize that it's in my humble recognition that being able to travel, being able to even do something for yourself, it's a privilege and a luxury
Yes.
as a mother,
Yeah.
because your kids are your responsibility. But now that they're older and I have been able to sort of, do the business setup that is based on appointment.
Yeah.
I don't have to go at a retail store and stand from 11 to 7 or 9 to 5. I work at my own hours. I make my own schedule. I am very, very, very involved with my kids,
Okay.
with their sports, dropping off hot lunches, dropping them off to school, making their breakfast. I'm very involved with their life.
Yeah.
I know what's going on in their life. I know if something is bothering them. I know if they're happy. I know if they're not. Like, I know I'm very much in tune with my children. And that is my biggest blessing.
Yeah.
My kids are my superpower because I feel they're my charging vault. Like, they charge me with so much love, right? And that's what motivates me and drives me to do more. because like I said earlier, I want my kids to set out big dreams, big goals for them, and not hold back. So if you want big things, if you want a life that's not conventional, you have to set out a discipline for yourself.
Yeah.
Like you have to put in the time. You have to nurture your body, your mind, and your soul if you're gonna be setting yourself out to do big things.
So how many kids do you have and how old are they now?
My son's gonna be 18 this year,
Oh, wow.
and my daughter is 10.
I love that I'm sure they have like a, older brother, like younger sister,
Yeah,
sort of like
yeah.
protective
Yeah,
dynamic.
yeah. Well, I guess it's the other way around. Just kidding. I was raised with an older brother, but their dynamic is so different.
Yeah.
They're almost like she bullies him. Like it's so.
Oh, really?
It's so funny to watch. I'm like, and I tell her, I'm like, you can't talk to your brother like that. You know, you have to be
Respectful.
But
Yeah.
they have such a funny, reckless, full of love dynamic.
It sounds like your marriage is like very healthy and amazing. Like, how have you I guess, what steps have you taken as a partner to ensure that your kids have a good example of what marriage and love is supposed to look like in the household?
I think the number one thing in relationships, in any relationships, and I learned that early in my age, that the more truthfully you show up in your relationships, the more respect you're going to earn from the other side, because
Totally.
it's all comes down to being who you are. And if there is something that you have to come make peace with, you have to communicate that with your family, with your partner.
Yeah.
And we don't agree on everything.
And I wanted to ask, have there been any moments in your marriage where you kind of had to work through like a very big conflict or something that was sort of make or break? That we think about is like, we look at social media, we look at marriages, we look at couples, and everything looks so perfect and rosy from the outside. But every married person I've talked to, no matter how happy they are, they can all admit that there have been make or break moments that just you have to get through as a couple. What have been those moments for you and your husband, and how did you navigate it together and come closer together?
I feel like marriage is a lot of work. Anybody who is married would say the same, and who doesn't, they're lying. My husband and I, and as a lot of couples would say, they're very different people. No couple is like, we do the exact same things and we love the exact same things.
It's good to be different.
It's good to be different and also work through the differences. But my biggest challenge or my biggest struggle in my marriage was, again, when my parents passed away, and I went through that dark hole of going through this awareness and breakthrough of who I am, what I want, why is nothing in my life giving me that fulfillment, and how is my boat rocked so much that I am questioning my marriage, I'm questioning my career.
Of course.
I'm questioning myself, I'm questioning relationships as a whole. So my husband took the brunt of it because he was on the receiving end, and I was going through this process of figuring out step by step by step by step. I didn't know what the big door would open. I was only could see through the peak hole that this is my next step. Like, I got to get some help.
Yeah.
I got to get some professional help. I got to go to therapy every week. I got to sleep on time. Little steps, but I was also going through so much of internal conflict where I did not find any fulfillment in my marriage, in my relationships. And that brought a lot of stress on my marriage.
Yeah.
And my kids and my family life. So my husband and I went through a really long sort of a communication. We were communicating, but we were not necessarily understanding what was happening. He was sympathetic, but he didn't know that what I really needed. I needed to dive deeper.
Yeah.
He couldn't bring to the table what I needed.
Yeah.
Because no human could bring that.
Yeah.
My journey was to find my own source within. My journey was to find my own healing within. It's really frustrating because our loved ones want to show up and heal everything for us.
Yeah.
And provide us with the toolkit or be the shoulder.
They want to wave the magic wand with love.
And it's frustrating because they're like, what am I not doing?
Yeah.
Like, how am I lacking?
Yeah.
But it's not him. It's not anybody.
Yeah.
There's always a time in life where you have to come to yourself, be your own backbone, be your own best friend, do the dialogue with yourself. We had to really work through difficult times. And I think that was the most challenging time in our lives.
Vulnerable enough to do that. I think it's a really big takeaway for a lot of people listening too, to understand that, these things require work. It requires, bending and giving and taking, but also self-work, right?
Yeah.
There's only so much that your partner can do for you. There's a lot that you need to do within yourself too sometimes.
And also it's almost unfair to, look at someone else to fulfill your void, you know, because they have their own journey.
Yeah.
So when you're a complete person and you show up in a relationship, it adds more color and value because you're not looking at the other person to fill that void, because that void is yours to fill within you.
Yes. What do you think about when you think about the next phase of your life? Do you have any plans for the future, any ideas or projects that you're particularly excited to be working on in the next couple of years?
I'm excited to book my next film. Like, I'm really excited to be acting, be on set again. I also take a lot of pride in my business. So I want to do more tours, and bring more designers, like come in this collaborative space where creatives can come together, create magic, and get to know one another, and things just feed off that energy.
And we're only just getting started with your acting career. I mean, you're only on year 6 right now, so this is just the beginning.
Thank you for saying that, because a lot of people would say that, when are you doing the next film? I'm like, I don't know. It's not like this career is, that's why, you never know. Like, some of the biggest actors sometimes have no work. Shah Rukh Khan hasn't done a movie in like so long.
Yeah.
Right before the usual Pathaan and those, the Jawan came. We were like, when is he going to come back on screen? So it's just the nature of the business. I'm excited wherever the path takes me. And I am embracing every moment of it with open arms, open heart.
Yeah.
I am excited to be here with you.
Oh,
thank you.
I
love the new connections I make. You're a lovely person, Sandalina. And
thank you.
And thank you for holding space for me. And
of course.
And just being so kind with a lot of wonderful things we talked about. And you're young and you still have a lot of depth and
thank you.
An understanding of life. So I'm very proud of you.
Thank you so much. Wow. And I'm so grateful that you came on and shared your journey and the highs of it, the lows of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think that that's representative of the human experience. So thank you for shining light on your rendition of the human experience and all that you've learned from taking all these risks and leaps in life. And I'm so honored to be sitting in a room with you.
The world's your oyster, and I'm so excited for your journey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aw. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in. That's all for today. And come back next Sunday for the next full-length episode. And in the meantime, I'm your talk show host, Sandalina Sitar, signing off.